Before his wedding, a young businessman begins to doubt the true identity of his beloved. To put her loyalty to the test, he abandons his upscale attire and dresses in shabby clothing, then pays her an unexpected visit. Jack had what most people would call the perfect life. Born with a silver spoon and handsomely attractive features, he was one of the most eligible bachelors in town. But the young man was quite the opposite of what people thought of him. Despite his riches, he was a humble, hardworking man who lived for his work. The business Jack owned was a product of his hard work. He had been a top student at business school and had his own company by the time he graduated. And he had done it all on his own. Mr. and Mrs. Allen were obviously proud of their hardworking son, but they were concerned he would take his work too seriously and miss out on his love life. That was until Jack introduced them to the love of his life, Bianca. As they all gathered for dinner at the Allens' massive mansion during their first meeting with Bianca, Mrs. Allen couldn't stop admiring her son and his lady love. "She is perfect for our son, darling," she whispered to her husband. "She's got the class, and she's gorgeous." "Well, if he's my son," said Mr. Allen proudly, "he'd only ever choose the best. After all, even his dad chose the most beautiful woman in the world." "Stop it," she whispered to her husband, blushing. "The kids might listen." "It's not like I said anything wrong, darling," he replied with a wink, and Mrs. Allen's cheeks flushed red at the compliment from her husband. Overall, the dinner made for a pleasant evening, and Jack's parents loved Bianca. She was a successful designer, smart and young, and very generous. They were impressed when they learned she believed in giving back to society and participated in numerous charitable activities. "You can consider Jack's dad and me as your parents, honey," Mrs. Allen told her before she left. "You no longer need to feel like you don't have a family. We are your family." Bianca had told the Allens she was an orphan, and the older couple felt terrible that the young woman had never grown up in a loving home, so they wanted to provide her with one. They decided to embrace her with open arms. But did Bianca deserve that love? Jack was secretly on the fence about it. He wouldn't have been so if it hadn't been for the romantic dinner at the best French restaurant in town, which gave him the first glimpse of Bianca's true personality. "Get the hell out of here," she hissed to a homeless man approaching her car door and begging for money when Bianca was walking to the car after dinner. "Please spare me something," the poor man said. "I haven't eaten anything in days. Please be gracious and God will reward you." "I think God has blessed me anyway," she exclaimed as she pushed the homeless man aside and settled in her car. The poor man, who had fallen with Bianca's push, stood up in tears and walked away. While this was happening, Jack was still in the restaurant, catching up with a friend he had run into. Unfortunately for Bianca, he saw what happened that day, and something about her felt very odd to him. "Are you all right, babe?" he inquired as he sat in the car. "Yeah, I'm fine," she said, smiling broadly. "Why?" "Nothing," he said, feigning a smile. Bianca pretended nothing had happened while Jack had clearly seen her behavior towards the poor man. A woman who did charity would never treat the needy that way. Was Bianca faking it all? From that day on, Jack started getting suspicious of Bianca. He had never bothered to ask her much about her life after she told him she didn't like talking about it. But it was time he found out who she was. So Jack asked his secretary to do a background check on her, and the results were enough to shake Jack. "Mr. Allen, are you sure you'd like to see this?" his secretary asked as he placed an envelope on the table. "I suggest you should talk things out with her directly." "If that's the case, Mr. Hilton," Allen said, "then I most definitely love to see what you have on my future wife."
Also, if you've not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these animal stories every day. Now, back to the story.
Jack opened the envelope and swallowed hard. His fiancée was everything he hadn't thought of her: a swindler, cheater, and a 3-time divorcee. He closed the flap of the envelope immediately and sighed. "Thank you for your hard work, Mr. Hilton," he said with a heavy heart. "I'll take care of the rest." After Mr. Hilton left his office, Jack cried. He loved Bianca with all his heart. He thought she was the one, so he had rushed through the wedding preparations, and the big day was only 2 weeks away. With the invitations printed, the wedding venue booked, and their attire scheduled to be selected the following week, Preparations for the grand wedding were in full swing. Approximately 3,000 individuals had been invited to the most luxurious hall in the area. However, Jack's priorities abruptly changed. He resolved to put his fiancée to the test and provide her with a single opportunity to refute his mounting doubts regarding her character. So a week before the wedding, the young businessman ditched his expensive suit in favor of a ragged jacket, ripped jeans, and a fake beard, and once he was convinced his looks passed off as a homeless man, he decided to visit his fiancée's house. When Jack arrived, pulling an old cart stuffed with torn cardboard sheets, he was greeted at the door by a frowning Bianca, and he smiled pleasantly, knowing she'd fallen for the trap. She didn't recognize him. "Please assist me, ma'am," he begged. "I'm knocking on doors to raise funds for my poor mother's surgery. You seem like a kind lady. Please help me." "A what?" she laughed. "A kind lady? I'm not a fool to fall for your flattery. I don't help beggars like you. Out. But I've heard such great things about you, ma'am," he pleaded further. "You give so much to charity. Your neighbors told me you're a generous woman. May I know why you're being so cold to me?" "Look, mister," she said rudely, "I don't do charity. That's all for show. I just needed to build a good reputation for myself, that's all. Now get lost and never knock on this door again for any help. Ever." At that point, Bianca's mask of lies fell off, and Jack knew exactly what his next step would be. "Well then, ma'am," he said, taking off his beard, "I don't think we can continue this relationship. I just wanted to give you a taste of your own medicine, and I think I did a good job, didn't I? I deceived you as you deceived me." "Jack?" Bianca's eyes were wide open in disbelief. "Babe, what was this? You were kidding, right? Look, I know it was you. I knew that right from the start, so I was just playing along." Jack laughed and tossed the envelope he'd gotten from Mr. Hilton on the floor. "It's over, Anne. Can't believe I fell for someone like you. I'll make sure you pay for what you did." Ultimately, Jack reported Bianca, aka Anne, to the authorities, and she was arrested. Since then, 3 years have elapsed without any contact from her. Currently, Jack is a contented family man, doting on his twin daughters. Shortly after ending things with Bianca, he discovered true love and has since built the life of his dreams with his wife and children. He remains grateful for the fortuitous encounter in which he witnessed Bianca's derogatory behavior towards the destitute man and intervened to prevent his life from being ruined. This story teaches us that dishonesty and deceit may yield immediate gains, but in the end, they will catch up with us. Neither Bianca nor Anne could have foreseen the eventual revelation of their true identity, but they were ultimately held accountable for their actions. Additionally, the tale underscores the importance of taking one's time in matters of the heart and being truthful in relationships. Jack rushed into a relationship, convinced that Bianca or Anne was his ideal partner, only to discover that it was a shallow, inauthentic connection. Fortunately, he was able to extricate himself from the situation,